Oh, hello. Hey, I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician, and I have the distinct honor and pleasure of chatting with Dr. Georgia Eid this afternoon, or whatever time it is in the world where you're watching now. I'm live on Facebook and my YouTube channel. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please consider doing so. That way, every time I interview someone whose opinion is very valuable, like Dr. Eads, you will get a notification and you'll be able to watch that as it's live. We're waiting for Dr. Eid to join us. I will bring her on as soon as she gets here. Dr. Eid is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist. She's been practicing psychiatric medicine for decades. She was in her past was eating a low-fat, low-calorie, high-carbohydrate diet. And when she started entering her 40s, she started to have some medical issues. Like many of us, she started to have things like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, migraines, irritable bowel symptoms. And only when she discovered a keto and then an almost carnivore diet was she able to either put those things in remission or reverse them or cure them, whichever terminology you prefer. So as soon as Dr. E joins us, we're going to get started here. If you know someone who suffers from mental health issues, it can range anywhere from anxiety to depression to OCD to ADD, autism, please have them or their loved one watch this right now. Send them a text, call them on the phone, go grab them by the hair of the head and say, hey, they're about to talk about diet and mental health, and there's going to be a family doctor and a psychiatrist talking about this, so you may want to listen and perhaps even pay attention. Let me see where we're at with Dr. Eid here. Feel free to ask your questions in the comments. She should be joining us any second there. I think we've got her right there. Let me bring Dr. Georgia Eid on. Doctor, hello. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you, Dr. Berry?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. If I was doing any better, I'd need a special permit.
Are all of you, are you and yours all well during this strange and trying time?
So far, so good. Nisha had some little upper respiratory thing, but we don't think it was the virus which shall not be named, because, you know, social media doesn't want you to say that word out loud. But, you know, so far, so good. We're doing well. We've been socially isolated here for, I guess, over a week now. And we were kind of prepared. I had a heads up about this coming in early February, made a couple of YouTube videos about it. And so we're pretty well prepared and stocked up, but I know a lot of people are hurting right about now.
Yeah, it really is. It really is quite a challenge for all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah, doctor, I can't express to you what a pleasure it is to talk to you again. We've met a couple of times at the low carb conferences, and I've probably watched every video presentation that you've ever done. I absolutely love the work that you do. And tell everyone, we've got about 850 watching right now. Tell everybody about you. I want you to tell us your bona fides and also your story, how you kind of stumbled upon this way of eating like many of us did.
Sure. So I've been a psychiatrist for about 20 years now, conventionally trained, Harvard residency program, prescribed medications, and, conducted psychotherapy with people, loved my work, did that for about 10 years. And then I started focusing more on nutrition, incorporating nutrition principles into my practice. And that was because, like so many of us, doctors who are learning new ways of doing our work, I came down with my own health issues, which the nutrition principles that I had been taught didn't help. And so, for example, I thought of myself as very healthy. I ran, 7 miles several times a week. I went to the gym. I exercised every day. I ate a low fat, low calorie, high fiber diet. I did all the things that I thought I was supposed to do. And despite all of that, in my early 40s, I became unwell. And so the things like IBS and chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and migraines and things that a lot of my middle-aged patients were suffering with, that I didn't know how to help them with. I would try, but we didn't really understand a lot of these things very well. And so it was frustrating for me to try to help them. And then, of course, now I had to try to help myself. And so that was really what happened. Was I went to all my, wonderful Harvard affiliated doctors, specialists, and had all kinds of tests. And everybody said, everything's normal. And of course, it felt anything but normal. And none of them asked me what I was eating. And all of them gave me the same sheet at the end of my appointment telling me what to eat, but I was already doing that. So in any case, I kind of, took matters into my own hands because I didn't really have another choice. I wasn't able to work as well. So in any case, I started experimenting with my diet. And this was probably, this was probably 10 years ago now or more, and more than 10 years ago now. And this was before a lot of people had heard of low carb or even paleo. So I was kind of on my own with it. And just through trial and error, I arrived at a diet that had basically taken care of all of these problems, every single one of them, but was very unorthodox and kind of upside down from what we're told to eat. And it had a lot of meat and fat and cholesterol and fewer plants, and was much lower in fiber, and didn't have dairy products or whole grains or anything like that in it. And that was the diet that restored my health.
Yeah.
And it not only restored my physical health, which was all I was trying to do, it improved my mental health in ways I was completely surprised by. So my concentration and mood and energy were better. My sleep was better. I was just a lot better able to cope with stress. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm a psychiatrist. Why is this diet better for the brain? I really want to understand that. And so that's when I really started studying nutrition. And as you know, you don't learn about nutrition in medical school. I think we had 2 or 3 hours in 4 years of medical school, and 0 hours in 4 years of psychiatry residency, at least.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about food once.
That's a very important thing. So you went to med school at Harvard, is that right?
Medical school at University of Vermont, and my residency, psychiatry residency training, 4 years at Cambridge Hospital, which is a Harvard residency training program. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I went to med school at the University of Tennessee. And our second year of med school, we had a nutrition course and a behavioral science, and they split the year with those. That's and so you can tell they were considered the 2 least important topics of all in medical school, because I got a half. So I went. It was like 2 hours a week for half a semester of nutrition, and then 2 hours a week for half a semester of behavioral science. And so that's literally the entirety of my nutrition and behavioral science training in medical school. And of course, we got some rotations and stuff in residency. But I tell people, I was telling Nisha this right before we went live. I said, I think Dr. Georgia Eid is the one thing that's actually come out of Harvard that I agree with 100%. I think you're the only thing that's ever come from Harvard that I actually really agree with almost every single word that comes out of your mouth. And so let's, if it's okay, let's really talk about the mental health part of this today. Yeah. Because I think that some variation of the proper human diet, whether it's an ovo-lacto-pescatarian, vegetable-heavy diet, but with lots of seafood fats, or all the way up to just a fatty red meat carnivore diet with lots of organ meats. I think if you're eating anywhere on that spectrum, you can have pretty darn optimal mental health. What do you think about that? And what are your kind of standard recommendations for somebody? And then I really want to dive deeply into the anxiety, the depression. I mean, because right now with this self-isolation, I mean, we've got our monkeys on our back trying to talk to us, and we've got our old ghosts coming up from the past. Everything is kind of really stressing us mentally. So let's talk about all that.
Fantastic. And by the way, thank you so much for inviting me, and hello to all of your viewers. I know that you've just really garnered a wonderful group of people with your excellent videos. So hi everybody. So right. So I use a variety of different approaches in my practice. Right. At this point, I'm doing 100% nutritional psychiatry. My practice is entirely online now. People can consult with me about whatever questions they have. But my approach is really kind of three tiers. And I think that a great starting place for everyone is kind of a paleo style diet. And that's really just, meats, fruits, vegetables, eggs, nuts, seeds, sort of, get rid of the grains, the legumes, the dairy products, all the modern processed foods. That diet is a great starting place, especially for kids and teenagers, where they still often have a pretty good carbohydrate metabolism and can handle fruits and starchy vegetables. And that's a great place to start. And then if that doesn't get you where you're trying to go, if you're still not feeling enough benefit from that, you can make modifications. And I think one of the most important things, I'm sure you would agree with this, is get tested for insulin resistance. Find out where you are at on the insulin, how high your insulin and blood sugar levels going throughout the day and night. And there are easy ways to test for that. And if you have insulin resistance, it's really important. I think one of the best ways, most effective ways to tackle not just the physical metabolic problems that come with that, but the brain metabolic problems that come with that, is to eat a lower carbohydrate or even a ketogenic version of that same whole foods diet. Because if you've got insulin resistance, high insulin blood sugar levels, the brain is not getting enough energy. And that's really, really important to correct. And then there are some people with lots of food sensitivities, or they do a ketogenic diet and they're still struggling. They may need to identify certain food sensitivities they weren't aware they had, or they may need to even try a carnivore diet what I think of as the ultimate elimination diet to identify food sensitivities that they may have been unaware of. And they can either use that carnivore diet long term, or they can use it short term as a sort of a way to clean things up and take a fresh look. So those are the three levels that I use in my practice, and various personalized versions of those. But I think the principles are really simple. Whole foods, so the food quality first, metabolism, pay attention to the metabolic piece, and then whatever food sensitivities or other autoimmune issues or special. A lot of us have a very damaged gut and immune system at this point, and unfortunately, we may need to go even further than a whole foods diet.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's very analogous to the way when we're babies as human beings, we all can digest and use the nutrition in breast milk, right? But as we get older and older, it becomes less and less easy for us to break down the lactose and the other proteins in milk, and we kind of lose that ability. And I think it's very analogous to carbohydrates. When a kid is very young, a kid can seemingly live and be very healthy on Pepsi Cola and Cheetos, but as you get older, you become less and less able to use those carbohydrates to power your brain and other parts of your body. And I think as we get older, diet needs to become increasingly important. And I'm not advocating a Pepsi Cola and Cheeto diet for kids. I'm just saying that you're better able to tolerate that when you're younger. But as we get older, when you get to be in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond, diet really is the foundation of your health, both physical and mental.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I love to say to people, medications can be helpful, and for some people, medications will still be an important part of their treatment plan. But I like to say that the most powerful way to change brain chemistry is through food, because that's where the brain chemicals come from in the first place. And that if you start there, then you really don't know. You really don't know how anxious or depressed you really are underneath all of that bad food. So if you take all those extra things out and find out who you truly are underneath all of the, most of us have been feeding our brain improperly for our entire lives.
Yes.
So we have no idea how we really feel.
I totally agree. And I really think that definitionally human beings are low carbohydrate mammals. I think we evolved eating as much fatty meat as we could get our hands on. We would eat a little veg if we wanted it, or if we were starving, we'd eat a lot of veg. But on the whole, and the paleoanthropological evidence bears this out with the stable isotope analysis, if we had a choice, we always chose as much fatty meat as we could eat. And then we might eat a little veg or eat some berries when they're ripe. But on a daily basis, we should be, and we are, very low carbohydrate mammals. That's where we do our best. And so many of us in the keto carnivore sphere, we talk about the health benefits. We talk about fat loss. We talk about decreased inflammation, reversing fatty liver, reversing type 2 diabetes. But I really think that mental health, behavioral science gets really shorted in this conversation, because some of the things that I saw in my practice before the clinic fire, and then hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of comments that I've received from people online, that literally their mental health was transformed by just turning down the carbohydrate intake. For some people, they can get it down. If they get under 100 total grams a day, their mental health is great. Other people have to crank it down to 50 or 20, or if you're like me, as crazy as I am, I have to turn it down as close to zero as I can get it to be, legally sane. And neither Dr. Ede nor I are anti-medicine. That's not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is medicine is a tool. There's no doubt about that. But the most powerful tool of all is what you eat and what you don't eat. That's the most powerful tool. And so why would you ignore this hugely powerful tool and then try to focus on this little tool? And so medication is maybe 1%, maybe 10% of the equation. Why would you ignore the 90 to 99% solution and focus on the 1 to 10% solution? So we're not anti-medicine here. Some people need medication, but most people, when they come to a fatty meat, heavy keto diet or a carnivore diet, they can decrease their milligram doses of medications that they're taking for multiple physical issues. But then I've had so many people, Dr. Ede, say, I used to take this for my anxiety or this for my depression, and I was able to wean it down very slowly with my doctor's help. And now I either take a tiny dose of that or I don't take any of that at all. How common is that? And what mental diagnoses have you really seen respond to a very low carbohydrate diet?
I haven't seen any psychiatric condition that hasn't improved by improving the quality of the diet and the metabolic balance of the diet. Because the principles that you and I are talking about are really just all cells in the body need the same nutritional care. Yep. And if you're feeding yourself properly in the best way for your cells, then your brain will benefit. And the brain isn't divided into different diagnostic areas. So it's not as though one part of the brain is for the depression part, and one part is the anxiety part, and one part is the bipolar part, and the ADHD part. The brain is an organ. It's all integrated. It's all connected. If you're feeding your brain properly, the entire brain will benefit. And whatever diagnosis you think you may have, I've seen improvement. I don't always see 100% improvement. But and I don't get the easy cases. I work with people who have really often tried many other things already and are taking many medications and have been hospitalized many times often. But I've really have yet to see somebody who hasn't benefited to at least some degree, and in many cases to a significant degree, by changing their diet and just learning the right way to eat. And then the keto diet and the low carb diets, significant benefits beyond food quality, because it improves energy delivery to the brain, reduces inflammation, reduces oxidative stress, all of these things that are kind of the cornerstones of all chronic diseases, including all of the common brain diseases from anxiety to Alzheimer's. So you really can't go wrong eating this way. And many, many people have been able to come off medication or lower their doses of medication, reduce the numbers of medications they're taking, and cope with life better. And this is really important right now because of the COVID-19 coronavirus. There is no more important time for you to focus on the quality of your diet, because if you want to build your immune system resistance and your ability to tolerate stress, the better your diet is right now, the easier it will be for you to weather this storm. It's not going to be easy no matter what you do, but it makes a huge difference in your ability to tolerate stress.
Absolutely. And so if we're operating under the premise that human beings by nature, by definition, by design, however you want to word it, are low carbohydrate animals, then when we're eating too many total carbohydrates each day, it's affecting us in multiple negative ways. But I think the two biggest ways are you're just getting too much glucose and fructose in your diet, and that's going to keep your blood sugar chronically elevated. It's going to keep your insulin level chronically elevated. And I talk about this in other YouTube videos, how that can actually negatively impact your innate immune system. And so your immunity to any infection is lessened if you're eating too many carbohydrates. But then, hearkening back to what Dr. E was saying about diet quality, food quality, so many of the things that we're told to eat, even by the American Diabetes Association and the American Medical Association, are inflammatory in nature, whether it's the processed grains or the processed legumes, the starchy vegetables, the industrial vegetable seed oils. These things cause inflammation all over the body. And in some people, it'll manifest as knee arthritis. In other people, it could be irritable bowel. In other people, it can be depression and anxiety. And I'm in love with this concept of brain inflammation as a cause of depression, anxiety, and other mental issues. What do you think about that? Just the inflammation angle of this.
There's no question about it. I mean, that's where the science is actually the strongest, is, inflammation, brain inflammation. It's not the kind of inflammation you can feel or see. It's not as though your brain is red or swollen or sore. Right. It's that, it's on a microscopic level. And, the brain doesn't even have pain receptors. So even if it were causing pain, you wouldn't be able to feel it. So, but this inflammation that you can see under the microscope or in the bloodstream in terms of the chemicals that are released, these inflammatory cytokines, these little SOS molecules that are traveling around saying we're in distress, we're in distress. So even if you're not aware of it, so inflammation is one of the underpinnings of most neurological and psychiatric disorders. Depression is, to a large extent, related to inflammation, and really every psychiatric disorder has inflammation at its core, and other problems too. So one of the problems with eating a high sugar diet, a diet that's too high in carbohydrates, fructose, sucrose, etc., is that whenever you get a blood spike of glucose, you get a brain spike of glucose. And that's a very serious problem because the brain can't handle a lot of glucose. In fact, it's designed to filter out 40% of what's in the bloodstream so that to protect itself, because there's really not a lot of reserve there to be able to deal with inflammation or be able to deal with all those glucose molecules. So the brain wants to be in a low glucose environment, but every time you eat something sweet or starchy that gives you a blood sugar spike, you're getting a brain sugar spike. And every time you get a brain sugar spike, you're getting a big burst of oxidative stress, like free radicals building up in the brain, and inflammation. So inflammation and oxidation come with every one of those blood sugar spikes. And most people, as you know, Dr. Berry, are eating this way 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. Yep. So this is putting the brain on this invisible internal roller coaster. And no wonder people are moody. No wonder people have crashes in energy and in their mood and anxiety spikes throughout the day. They're hungry, then they're tired, then they can't concentrate. The brain is very, very unstable in that environment.
Absolutely. And so many people, when they're eating the diet that their doctor handed to them and said, here's the diet recommended by the American Diabetes Association, or whatever regulatory body happened to put that out, they're eating anywhere between 150 to 350 total grams of carbohydrates a day. And just like the kind of the proverbial recommendation of, eat lots of fruits and veg. Well, most people like fruits a lot better than they like veg, right? And so they're going to wind up just eating hundreds of grams worth of carbohydrates of fruit every day. And they might eat some veg, right? They might eat some baby carrots because that's technically a vegetable, right? But they're going to wind up having these huge blood sugar spikes, even if they're eating bananas and green grapes and raisins and things that they think are full of fiber and full of all these magical phytonutrients. And in reality, what they're full of is carbohydrates, which turn immediately to glucose and fructose, which spike your blood sugar, cause you to store fat in your liver, and cause all the inflammatory problems that we're talking about. Doctor, how often do you see other conditions intimately tied with depression or anxiety or another mental issue like irritable bowel syndrome and depression or Crohn's and anxiety? How often do you see that body-mind connection?
Almost all the time. So it's very rare to meet somebody who has a serious mental health condition without also having some physical health issues as well. And very commonly chronic pain or digestive problems. And so again, inflammation, breakdown of the natural barriers in our gut. I can't even tell you how many people have said, I was fine until my gut went downhill. And then once my gut went downhill, my brain went with it. And, we don't have a lot of good science on this connection yet. It's emerging, but there is a connection there. But and vice versa. So when people are stressed, it can affect their gut. So if you're feeling, there's a very strong connection between the brain and the gut. So, I know very, very few people who have serious mental health problems who are otherwise physically healthy. And I think that's really wonderful. One of the wonderful things about nutrition is that I don't have to think about you as somebody with an isolated brain problem and target a medication to that specific area of the body. I can say, here is a plan that will, I believe, help you with all of these things that you're struggling with. And instead of getting a lot of side effects, we're going to look for side benefits. We're going to look for, not just better brain health, but better gut health and less pain, fewer headaches, more energy. You're going to maybe come off your diabetes medications. We're going to get side benefits and no copays.
Yeah,
so
no
it's really great.
No prior authorization, right? You don't have to sit on hold with the insurance company just to eat real food. Yeah, and eat low carbohydrate food. Let's see. I've got a couple of questions. Someone wants to know, doctor, what do you eat in the average day? What's your diet like? We'd love to know.
Sure. So my diet currently is a carnivore diet, but it's a little bit modified for my food sensitivity. So I'm eating poultry, seafood, lamb, and that's pretty much it. Salt. So that's pretty much what I eat. I don't eat beef. I don't eat pork. I don't eat eggs or dairy. So I know some carnivores do include a lot of those things, but I personally don't tolerate them. So that's what my diet looks like.
Yeah, and mine's very much the same, except I'm much more red meat heavy and seafood heavy and less chicken for me. I don't feel like I do well with chicken. Someone commented they think that raw honey is carnivore because it's a product of an animal. What's your take on raw honey? And let's make it organic, non-GMO, from sacred bees from the Himalayan mountains. What do you think about raw honey?
Well, when you put it that way, maybe we can make an exception. No, no, honey is honey, sugar is sugar. And, the way that there are many different ways of defining a carnivore diet. And so the way that I define a carnivore diet is that it is the flesh and organs of an animal. And it in my definition of a carnivore diet doesn't even include dairy products. So because dairy is just a completely different type of food, then dairy and meat are not the same. The proteins aren't the same. The fats aren't the same. It's not the same. And so we have to sort of carve that out as well. But no, honey, unfortunately, is actually honey has more sugar in it than sugar does. And so I know it sounds like a wonderful idea to include that, but it's not true.
No. Honey it's one of the third rails of nutrition. Like you can't talk bad about bananas. You can't talk bad about grapes because they're fruits, damn it. You can't take those from me. And then honey almost has this religious connotation. If you say something bad about honey, you will literally infuriate some people. I'm sorry, folks. I love you to death, but honey is, first of all, pure sugar. And secondly, it's bee vomit. And so no, honey is not a food that human beings. Now, did we in the past, 100,000 years ago, if our tribe happened upon a honey tree, did we eat it? Heck yeah, we ate every bit we could get, and we laid around in a sugar coma for 2 days afterwards. But that happened once a year, once every 2 years. That should never be a daily food. Just like bananas and grapes, they're pure sugar. They're just going to cause hyperglycemia and hyperinsulinemia and inflammation in your body. What about poop? You're a doctor, so you can talk about poop. It's okay. Somebody wants to know, how do you poop on a carnivore diet? I mean, you're not eating any fiber. How do you poop?
Oh, well, I actually love that question because, I think about fiber as all the myths about fiber, I call it pulp fiction. I mean, there just isn't, the definition of fiber is that it's an indigestible plant food. We cannot digest it. There are two types. There's soluble and insoluble fiber. The insoluble fiber, even our bacteria can't break down in the gut. The soluble fiber, our bacteria love to ferment. And that, in the process of fermenting the soluble fiber, the bacteria create lovely gases, which can make you unpopular at parties, but can also, cause a lot of distress and, bloating and pain and discomfort. So there are a lot of downsides to fiber. So good nutrition shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't cause bloating. And if you're eating animal foods are better digested than any other type of food. And so there's meat and animal fat does not cause constipation. It's very, very easy to digest. People who eat a carnivore diet may use the bathroom less often, shall we say, but that doesn't mean they're constipated.
That's
it's just
right.
because there's less matter to be dealt with, and it's to put it that way.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect way to describe it. When you're eating a diet that is so nutrient dense that it's almost 100% nutrition, there's nothing really left to poop. And so back when I was eating a paleo diet that was heavy in quinoa and beans and spaghetti squash, man, I pooped like a champ. I would 3-4 times a day. And I mean, it would be like clear the house poops, right? It was just terrible. But now as a carnivore, I have a small poop every other day. I'm not ashamed to talk about my poop. I mean, I think it's a vital human function. That's not constipation, but so many people are confused because they're used to having those 3 huge blowouts a day when they're eating all of the fiber. And oh, by the way, guys, if you're looking for a great source of fiber, cardboard is almost 100% fiber. You can put it through your vegetable spiralizer. You can saute it in some canola oil, and it's a great source of fiber. You'll poop like a champ. But it's not really food for humans, is it? And neither is the fiber found in other plant foods as well. But carnivores don't poop as often and they don't poop as much. That's not a bad thing. That's actually very ancestrally appropriate. You can imagine if we were out on the savannah or on the plains 100,000 years ago, if you had to stop and have this ginormous stinky poop 4 times a day, that would not be conducive to good reproductive fitness. Right? I mean, that would be bad because the saber-tooth could smell you from 3 miles away and would come and eat you. And so carnivores don't poop like the average person, but that's actually a good thing, not a bad thing.
Well put.
Where do we need to go next with this, Doc? There's so many people who are suffering with mental health. And the problem with mental health is that it kind of becomes part of your self-definition, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And so if you're a type 2 diabetic and I say, hey, you can reverse your type 2 diabetes, most diabetics are like, wait, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. But you kind of have to be careful how you talk about mental health issues like depression and anxiety because people, it's a definitional thing for them. They think it's part of who they are. And therefore, a lot of people, I've offended many people on Twitter and on Facebook by saying, hey, you can reverse your depression. They're like, you don't understand. This is part of who I am. And I'm like, is it really? Well, help us understand this because it's a very intertwined, complicated issue. Help us understand the difference between who you really are and then your mental health diagnosis.
Yeah, what a great question. So our identities get tied up. How we feel about things, how we view the world, how we experience our emotions, those are really an integral part of our identity. And a lot of people who have been depressed for many, many years or anxious for many years, they can sometimes start to think of themselves as depressed by nature or as their identity. And so it's really important to tease those things apart and remind people that these are symptoms. These are symptoms and they may not be forever. They may not be something that you have to live with forever. They may be changeable. They aren't always, but they are often things that you can improve. And one of the things that happens so often, which I love, is that if somebody comes to me with depression, anxiety, and they have, and it's very common, of course, to have a really serious trauma history. Something terrible happened to them a long time ago, or perhaps repeatedly, or perhaps with their entire childhoods, to terrible neglect or abuse, terrible losses, dislocations, all kinds of things can happen to people in their young lives, and many people then begin to think that the problems that they've experienced because of those traumas are permanent. And sometimes they are, but often they are not. And so what can happen is, if you find a way of eating that improves your health, and this can even happen with medications, but I mean, I prescribed medications exclusively for 10 years before I changed the way I practice. If you find a good medication for somebody, if you find the right diet for somebody, it doesn't change what happened to them, but it changes how they feel about it, and it changes how they cope with stress going forward. And they'll say, and I've heard this so many times I can't even count, hundreds of times, nothing's different. My life is still just as awful as it was before. I'm still in the same terrible relationship, or I still don't have any money, or whatever it is. But it doesn't feel the same way. I feel like I can manage it now. It's not right here in front of me all the time. I can push it off to the side. And for a lot of people, that is a huge gift that they could never have imagined. They could because it was so close to them. They thought that it was who they were. And so that's such a wonderful thing. I mean, why not give food a chance and see how you actually are underneath all of that?
Absolutely. So let's see what to talk about next. Let's talk about brain nutrition. Mm-hmm. What are the most common nutrients that our brain needs that are deficient in just the standard Western diet or the ADA diet? What is it that our brain is craving that it needs? And I've talked to many vegans, and I have much love and respect for people who are vegan, because first of all, they're actually thinking about their health and thinking mm-hmm. diet. That's the first step to coming to the proper human diet. But so many of them will say, I was vegan for however many years, and when I ate some fatty fish, or when I ate a pork chop, it's like my brain lit up. It was like somebody had hit the on switch, and I was actually mentally clear. I could think long term. I wasn't forgetful. What nutrition did they get in that animal food that they were not getting from their plant-based diet?
Yes, it's also a topic near and dear to my heart as well. And so, having worked in college mental health for many, many years, at Harvard for a long time, and then at Smith College, a women's college, where many of the students ate a plant-based diet and really believed in the importance of that primarily for compassionate reasons, if not for health reasons. And so I really understand this issue inside and out. And the sort of, as you know, the plant-based diet, and I'll be more specific, a vegan diet, which doesn't contain any animal foods at all, has huge nutritional holes. And many of these are downplayed or dismissed or overlooked by some of the prominent people who promote plant-based diets. And so a lot of people aren't aware. They aren't aware. It's not just B12 that you can't get on a vegan diet. It's almost impossible for you to get enough omega-3 fatty acids. And it is impossible. The DHA, for example, EPA, DHA is an omega-3 fatty acid, very, very special one that the brain must have in order to develop properly and in order for the neurotransmitters to work properly. And for your mitochondria to work properly, actually, so you can get energy. So DHA is this special fatty acid only found in animal foods. And you can make a little bit of DHA out of the types of omega-3 that you find in plant foods, but some people can't make very much of it at all. And we already know 100% you cannot make enough DHA from plant foods to sustain a pregnancy or to be able to breastfeed a baby and give the baby enough DHA. So because that developing brain requires a high amount of DHA. You may not be getting enough zinc in your diet, not because there isn't zinc in plant foods, but because many plant foods contain molecules that interfere with our ability to absorb minerals, zinc, and iron, and magnesium, and calcium. So many people are deficient in zinc. 10 to 20% are deficient in iron. 10 to 20% of women are deficient in iron. And iron is not just a blood. If you have an iron deficiency, it's not just a blood problem. You have a brain problem. You cannot manufacture certain neurotransmitters like dopamine without iron. And so there may be many things that your diet doesn't have enough of: the wrong fatty acids, not enough minerals, and of course the vitamin B12, which is extremely important. The limits on B12, if you test your B12 level, the standard test will say that if it's 220, if it's below 221, then you're B12 deficient. That level is far too low. We really need our B12 levels to be at least 500 or more. And so those ranges are off. Just because they reflect the normal range doesn't mean they reflect the healthy range. And
Totally
so
true.
it's
Totally true.
really important to every single client that I work with, the first thing we do is make sure that there aren't deficiencies that can be easily addressed. And those of deficiencies, the first thing a lot of people will do is they'll add a supplement. But that's not the place to start. The place to start is changing your diet so that you can get the nutrients from the food. That's how the body prefers to get them. And then if you can't, if there's some reason why you can't, meet your needs entirely with a healthy diet, then you may need a supplement here and there, but that's not the first place to start. The place to start is, okay, why am I deficient in this in the first place? I must not be eating the right foods.
Totally agree. And so many people, I mean, if you watch any of the vegan influencers, and I do quite often because I have to speak their language in order to help vegans who are suffering, to try to help them understand, yeah, I know that they basically convinced you that veganism is the proper human diet, but it ain't, okay? The fatty acids found in plants are almost exclusively alpha-linoleic acid, ALA,
Yep.
right? And they will tell you, oh, if you eat flaxseed and you eat, this and that, you'll get plenty of ALA, and then you'll convert that over to DHA and EPA. And the problem is that all of us are poor converters, and some of us are terrible converters from ALA to DHA and EPA. Some of us almost can't convert that at all, and so you would have to eat pounds of flaxseed a day in order to get enough ALA that your conversion system could convert enough to EPA and DHA so you could just eke by an existence. And there's a reason that the formula companies put DHA in formula for babies, because
Yes.
it is absolutely vital for proper brain development in human beings and probably in all animals, to be my guess. But we don't have a good conversion method from ALA to DHA and EPA. And a lot of vegan influencers will mislead people, like, oh, you're going to get all the omega-3 fatty acids you need. Anything further you would add about that, doctor?
Yes, absolutely. So there are three types of omega-3s, and it's very confusing for people, right? So there are three kinds of omega-3s. There's ALA, which you can get from plants or animals. There's EPA and DHA. EPA is anti-inflammatory primarily. DHA is for membrane function, for brain development, heart function, mitochondria, retina, proper development of the retina in the eyes, so good vision, neurotransmission, development of the baby's cortex. DHA is really very, very important. And so you have ALA, EPA, and DHA. EPA and DHA do not exist in plant foods. Plant foods contain absolutely no EPA or DHA. You must try to convert from plant ALA, if you're not eating animals, from plant ALA. And as you said, the conversion rate is dismal, and it's as low as 0% in some people and as high as maybe 10% or a little bit more in other people, but you really don't want to take that risk. And so if you're someone who really is not comfortable eating animal foods, then an algae supplement is the only way that you're going to be able to get the omega-3s you need. And algae is neither plant nor animal. Discuss. Algae is neither plant nor animal. So it's somewhere in between, and that's why but you can't just eat algae. You have to buy a supplement which has extracted the DHA and EPA from the algae, because we don't digest algae well. So you need a special supplement, and they are available if you don't want to eat animals, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. And so, but particularly pregnant women, breastfeeding women, DHA is critical for the developing brain, and you may not get that window of opportunity back. The brain only has one shot at developing properly, and then there may not be any diet that you could follow later in life that would be able to address whatever deficiencies intellectually or emotionally that may occur. It's just very, very risky to not include that molecule or during the first 1,000 days of life.
100% agree. And so if you're watching this and you're a vegan or plant-based, we're not judging. We're not condemning.
No.
That's happening here. We absolutely want you to have optimal health. And if you're eating a diet, that means that you have to take a supplement of highly processed algae, which is it's kind of a plant animal hybrid. And a lot of people think algae is a plant, but it's not. So if you're eating a diet that you have, and so think about it, 100,000 years ago on the savannah, in the plains, in the jungle, we didn't have access to algae at all, ever in our entire lives. And so how were we able to not only grow our own brain, but reproduce and breastfeed and develop our offspring's powerful human brain? How were we able to do that without a highly processed algae supplement? If you have to take a highly processed, expensive supplement on the current diet you're eating, then I would opine it's not the proper human diet. Doctor?
No, and of course, and B12 makes that case very nicely too, because B12 supplements have only been available for a few decades now, and so B12 is critical for particularly for the brain, but for the entire nervous system, and for blood, and for your blood system. And so people wouldn't have been able to obtain enough B12 from their diets without supplements, prior to the 1950s, which is, I think, when they were developed. So, people who want to make that choice you can supplement your way around a healthy diet, although we don't really know long term if that is as good. Right. We don't know. We don't have the studies to tell us whether or not that is as good as getting those nutrients from foods, because the body is designed to get them from foods. And then there are lots of other molecules which are difficult to get from plants as well. So, and a high plant diet is very hard on the body. It's very hard on the digestive system. It's a tough road, and it's important. It's important to know to make informed choices. And so, I absolutely respect people who choose not to eat animals, but just make sure you have all the information you need to optimize the diet of your choice.
Yeah. And I totally understand, because when I was in my early teens, I tried to eat as vegan as I could, because I had seen this documentary about chicken hatcheries, right? The big factory production of eggs. And it was terrible. It was, I had nightmares about it. And so I'm 100% opposed to factory farming and factory animals. I hate that. And I hate that goes on in the world. And that's why I'm always advocating, buy your eggs from a local farmer, buy your meat from a local farmer. But at the same time, at some point, I had to kind of grow up and say, yeah, but I'm a human. I'm sure that teenage lions and tigers feel some remorse and regret for having to eat the gazelle. But when you grow up, you have to kind of put away childish things. And so I get why vegans wouldn't want to eat mammals. But what I would offer to vegans is, okay, I get it. You don't want to eat warm-blooded, cuddly animals with a face and a mom who breastfeed their offspring. I get that 100%. You can do a carnivore diet or even a keto diet without eating mammals. You don't have to eat mammals. You can absolutely eat seafood, you can eat mollusks, and you can eat crustaceans, and you can eat fish. You don't ever have to eat a mammal. And to me, that seems like that should satisfy most people's moral issue with eating mammals. Because, for example, I'm never going to eat a chimpanzee or a gorilla or a dolphin, because they're so intelligent. And so for me, it's the intelligence factor. But for other people, it's the warm-blooded mammal that they just can't stomach that. And I totally understand that point of view. But fish, crustaceans, mollusks, eat the fat, eat the protein, get the DHA. You've got to feed your body. You are a human being. You have to kind of own that. So anything you'd add to that, Doctor?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things I say so often to people is that it doesn't have to be red meat. And in fact, you can get, as you were pointing out so rightly, you can get everything you need from shellfish, from oysters, clams, mussels. I personally am not a fan of liver, so I eat mussels, which I actually like a lot. And that gives B12 and iron and zinc and all the things you need. And in some cases, even superior source to red meat, and in some cases. And so, and that's a way of eating nose to tail, because you're eating the whole animal, without having to eat organ meats. If you're not somebody who likes to do that, which I'm not a big fan of.
Nisha, my wife, is exactly like you. She would rather eat a dozen raw oysters any day as to even smell the liver that I'm sauteing in my skillet with bacon grease. She doesn't even want to smell it, much less eat it. But she loves mussels and oysters and other seafood, and that's how she gets a lot of her fatty acids and a lot of her B12 and zinc and other things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fantastic option, and I've worked with many vegans over the years, and for most of them that is still not a line that they will cross, and that's fine. That's I'm nutritionally pro-choice, so I just want people to have the information they need to make the decision that they feel comfortable with.
Yep.
And so, if you're going to not eat animals, please supplement properly. Learn all you can about which supplements you need, and don't just pay attention to your cholesterol levels and your weight. Pay attention to your entire health, your skin, your hair, your gut health, chronic pain. Too many people are focusing on, okay, well, if I don't eat animal foods, then my cholesterol level will go down. Well, that's not a measure of health.
Right.
If you're not feeling good, then ask yourself why, and see if there are some changes you can make.
Your total cholesterol level and your LDL are the least important health markers that you can spend your time thinking about.
That's right.
They literally at the bottom of the hierarchy when it comes to true human health and optimization. There are so many other markers that are so much more important, but yet the average healthcare provider, all they want to talk about is your total cholesterol and your LDL being high. You need to take a statin. Well, let's talk about statins in mental health.
Yes. So one of the biggest problems I have in my practice is that I'm often working with older people who are worried about Alzheimer's, or even some people who have early Alzheimer's already, and almost all of them are on statins. And it's one of the medicines that I like to advise people to talk with their doctor or cardiologist about removing, because it is an anti-brain medication. So the statin drugs, every single one of them, cross the blood-brain barrier to different degrees. And what they do there in the brain is they throw a monkey wrench into cholesterol production. The cholesterol is this, as I think many of your viewers know, and you certainly know, is a really important molecule. It's a vital molecule, an integral part of every cell membrane. It's really important. We need cholesterol. But it's too bulky and big to cross from the bloodstream into the brain. It's a big molecule. But the brain needs cholesterol so badly that it makes every single molecule of cholesterol up there itself, right there on site. So what I like to say is, why would the brain go out of its way to make a molecule that's bad for you?
Right.
It wouldn't, because it's smart. It's a brain. It wouldn't do that to you.
Exactly. The human body has been doing what it's been doing for a long damn time, people. So the fact that your brain goes out of its way and spends molecular energy in the form of ATP and NADH and others to make a cholesterol molecule, which is quite a big molecule, why would your brain go to the trouble to make something that's going to cause its own self to have a stroke? It wouldn't.
Exactly.
You need cholesterol for proper brain function. And so I love it that you advise all your patients to talk to their doctor if they're on a statin about why exactly they're on that.
Yes, and usually they're on it because their LDL or their total cholesterol is too high, and as you just said, probably the lab test that I care about the least. In fact, if I don't ever see it, I don't care. what I want to see is your triglycerides. I want to see your HDL. I want to see your fasting insulin level. I want to see your blood sugar. I want to see your blood sugar an hour after you eat. These are the kinds of things I want to see. I don't care about your LDL. I don't care about your total cholesterol. They don't predict heart disease risk anyway. So, but if you're taking a statin drug, it's crossing the blood-brain barrier. It's getting into the brain. It's interfering with healthy cholesterol production. Now, if your brain doesn't have enough cholesterol, it's not going to work properly. Lots of people have cognitive side effects, difficulty concentrating, difficulty thinking on statin drugs. They don't just have muscle pains, et cetera. They often will have cognitive side effects. Now, if you're trying to improve your cognitive function, it's really important to get rid of that statin. And I think there are very, very, very few people. My reading of the cardiology literature is there are very, very, very few people who may even benefit a tiny, tiny little bit from taking a statin in the first place. So, and that molecule, as you said, why would the brain go out of its way? I think it's something like 27 steps to make it. It's an incredibly complex molecule. And once you've built it, you actually can't destroy it because it took so long to build that you can't even break it apart. The body has to excrete it in the bile. So there's no way that your body is going to absorb more cholesterol than it needs from your food because it's actually hard to get rid of it. It turns off absorption. Your gut has receptors in it that turn off cholesterol absorption once you've had enough cholesterol absorbed into your bloodstream. You cannot give yourself high cholesterol by eating too much cholesterol. Even the USDA agrees with that now. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about that, but you do have to worry about taking drugs that poison your chemical pathways and interfere with your ability to make the molecules that you need to function properly.
100% agree. Guys, you're hearing it. You're hearing words of wisdom from Dr. Georgia Eid. Doctor, this has been such a pleasure. Tell us where we can find you online. Where can we go if people are interested in learning more about mental health as it relates to diet, what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat? Where can they find you?
Yeah, well, it's been just a great fun talking with you too. I've really enjoyed it. So my website is called diagnosisdiet.com. I write frequently for Psychology Today about food and brain health. I do consults with people if people are interested in talking with me one-on-one. And I'm on Twitter at Georgia Eid MD. My last name is spelled EDE. I'm on Facebook, Georgia Eid MD. So easy to find. Not speaking any conferences anytime soon because of coronavirus. I had a lot of conferences canceled, so I unfortunately won't be able to meet people in person anytime soon. But yeah, come find me. I'm happy to engage with you. Happy to work with people who are interested. And I have lots and lots of free information on my website, lots of free articles, lots of free videos online. So please take advantage of those if you find them helpful. Absolutely. I totally agree. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me. Please come back again. We've got so much more to talk about. Anytime. I've really enjoyed it. And I so appreciate the invitation. And thanks for all the great work that you do, making this information available to people in a way that is really digestible. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time, Doctor. All right. Take it easy. All right. All right, guys. Dr. Georgia Eid, if you're just now joining, you can go back and watch this either on my Facebook page or my YouTube channel. The video will be saved in both those places. Thank you so much for joining. And we tried to answer as many questions as we could. Check out Dr. Georgia Eid's website. I put a link down in the show notes on Facebook and YouTube. If you're on YouTube on your phone, you have to scroll down past a bunch of videos to get to the show notes. That's where it's at. You're welcome to share this video if you know someone with a mental health issue who you think this information might help. Please share this video with them. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here and go spend some time with my family. Thanks for all the compliments on my hair. Nisha cut my hair today because of the isolation. I wasn't able to make it to my hairstylist, so she did an excellent job. Nisha also just posted a new video on her YouTube channel about the foods that she's using to keep from falling off the wagon during this period of isolation, kind of snacky foods that she's able to eat so she doesn't wind up eating all the Doritos or nachos or anything else. So that's it for this one. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back next Wednesday at 5 live with another expert to talk about nutrition and your health. Thanks a lot.